Are you ready for a shocking truth that could change your life forever? By 2025, new U.S. immigration rules may force millions of families out of their homes, strip them of legal status, and even make simple mistakes a ticket to deportation. From skyrocketing visa fees to harsh family reunification limits, everyday life could turn into a minefield. Imagine being separated from your children or losing everything you've worked for overnight. Stay with us because in this video we reveal 10 rules that could impact you or your loved ones and what you need to know before it's too late. Number 10. Mandatory exit requirements for non-compliance. The 10th rule set to impact families in 2025 is the introduction of mandatory exit requirements for non-compliance, a policy that could force residents to leave the United States if they fail to meet even minor immigration obligations. Previously, missed deadlines or procedural errors often resulted in warnings, fines, or temporary delays. Under the new rule, failure to comply with documentation, reporting, or visa conditions may trigger automatic deportation orders. This creates a climate of uncertainty where families must constantly monitor every legal requirement, knowing that a single mistake could uproot their lives. The scope of this rule is extensive. Non-compliance can range from missed paperwork deadlines to minor infractions like failing to report a change of address or updating employment information. Legal authorities now have the power to mandate immediate exit, leaving little room for appeals or corrective measures. Families living in this system are effectively on a tightrope, where ordinary life events such as moving homes, switching jobs, or navigating medical emergencies carry heightened legal risks. The stress associated with potential removal can impact mental health, family cohesion, and daily functioning. Children, in particular, may experience trauma when parents face sudden threats of deportation, disrupting schooling and emotional development. Beyond individual households, the effects of mandatory exit requirements ripple across communities and the workforce. Employers may hesitate to hire immigrants, knowing that sudden removal could leave positions unfilled and disrupt operation. Neighborhoods could lose stability as long-term residents are forced to leave, and social services may struggle to support families in transition. Economically, families forced to exit may take with them skills, education, and contributions to local economy. By 2025, mandatory exit requirements create a system in which compliance is no longer a matter of diligence but of survival. Families must navigate a high-stakes environment, where failure to meet rigid rules could mean leaving behind homes, jobs, and the life they have built, making the American dream increasingly precarious. Number 9. Increased visa fees. The 9th rule causing financial strain in 2025 is the dramatic increase in visa fees, a change that threatens the ability of many families to maintain legal status. Previously, visa application and renewal costs were relatively manageable, allowing most families to budget for processing without extreme hardship. Now, fee hikes are expected to double or even triple for certain categories, including work, student, and family visa. For households already balancing rent, groceries, and education costs, this sudden financial burden can force difficult choices. Some families may delay or avoid applications entirely, risking status violations that could have long-term consequences. These increased fees are not limited to initial applications. Renewals, extensions, and dependent applications are all affected. For families with multiple members needing documentation, the total cost can become astronomical. Legal experts warn that the combination of higher fees and slower processing creates a double burden. Even when families pay, they may still face long waits or denials. This can push households into debt, forcing sacrifices in healthcare, education, or housing. The rule disproportionately affects middle and lower-income families, who may lack the resources to absorb sudden fee increases. In effect, the U.S. is creating a system where legal immigration increasingly favors the wealthy, while others struggle just to maintain basic compliance. The broader implications extend beyond finances. Families who cannot afford these fees may be forced to live with uncertainty, stress, and fear of falling out of status. Communities may experience higher numbers of undocumented residents as families seek alternatives, which can complicate local economies and social services. Employers also face disruption when essential workers struggle to maintain visas due to escalating costs. For children, the consequences are emotional and practical, as parents under financial strain may cut back on education, healthcare, or extracurricular opportunity. By 2025, the increase in visa fees transforms a routine legal process into a high-stakes financial challenge, forcing families to constantly weigh compliance against survival, making legal status a privilege rather than a right for many. Number 8. Public benefits test expansion. The eighth rule causing major concern in 2025 is the expansion of the public benefits test, a policy that directly affects families' ability to access healthcare, nutrition, and housing assistance. Previously, using certain public programs did not automatically jeopardize an immigrant's status. Under the new regulations, however, more programs are now counted against applicants when determining eligibility for visas or green cards. Families that rely on assistance during difficult periods, such as medical emergencies or temporary unemployment, may now find themselves at risk of denial or even removal. What was once a lifeline for stability is quickly turning into a potential hazard. This expanded test applies not only to traditional welfare programs but also to healthcare subsidies, food assistance programs, and housing support. For example, a family that receives help with medical bills for a sick child may be flagged as likely to become a public charge, a term used in immigration law to indicate potential dependence on government aid. Experts warn that this can create a chilling effect. Families may avoid seeking necessary care or basic support out of fear that it could threaten their immigration status. Critics highlight that the rule disproportionately affects low-income households, even when parents are working, paying taxes, and contributing to society. The message is clear: survival assistance may now come with serious legal consequences. The broader societal impact of this rule is substantial. Children may grow up malnourished or without proper health care, while parents struggle silently to avoid any interaction with supportive programs. Communities that rely on immigrants in essential services could face instability if families are forced to leave due to technical violations of the public benefits test. Employers may also see decreased productivity as stressed families attempt to navigate financial hardships and immigration fears simultaneously. Ultimately, the expanded public benefits test transforms everyday decisions like visiting a doctor, applying for food aid, or seeking housing support into potential threats to legal residency. By 2025, millions of families will face the painful reality that accessing support could jeopardize their future, turning programs meant to help into tools of exclusion. Number 7. Deportation for minor violations. The seventh rule alarming families in 2025 is the rise of deportation for minor violations, a shift that places countless households in danger of sudden separation. Previously, small administrative mistakes, such as an expired work permit, missed appointment, or incomplete form, were often corrected through warnings or resubmissions. Now, even these minor issues may trigger removal proceedings. Families who have lived in the United States for years, contributing through taxes and labor, could face devastating consequences from a single oversight. The atmosphere of fear this creates is profound, as families realize that even technical errors can become life-changing threats. What makes this rule particularly harsh is the broadened definition of violations. Actions that were once considered manageable errors are now categorized as grounds for enforcement. Immigration officers have been given expanded authority to initiate deportations more quickly, and appeals may be harder to win. Critics argue that this approach criminalizes normal human mistakes, punishing individuals who may already struggle with complex legal systems. Legal experts warn that the paperwork-heavy nature of immigration creates countless opportunities for small errors, and turning those errors into deportation triggers destabilizes not just individuals, but entire families. Children born in the U.S. could suddenly see parents detained or removed, leaving them in a traumatic state of uncertainty. The consequences ripple far beyond the households directly affected. Communities lose stability when neighbors, co-workers, and classmates vanish due to enforcement action. Employers may hesitate to hire non-citizens, fearing sudden losses if workers are removed, which could create labor shortages in essential industries. At the same time, the psychological toll on immigrant families is immeasurable. Living with the constant threat of deportation for something as small as a missed signature generates anxiety, stress, and mistrust of institutions. By 2025, this rule transforms the immigration process into a minefield, where even the most careful families live in fear of a single mistake, unraveling everything they have built. Deportation for minor violations is not simply about enforcing order. It is about reshaping the daily lives of millions into a fragile existence on the edge of uncertainty. Number 6. Green card backlogs intensify. The sixth rule creating turmoil in 2025 involves worsening green card backlogs, leaving millions of families trapped in long periods of waiting. A green card, or permanent residency, has traditionally been the stepping stone to stability, work freedom, and a future in the United States. However, under new conditions, processing times are stretching even further, with applicants often waiting 5, 10, or even more years for approvals. For families, this delay translates into endless uncertainty, where life decisions such as buying a home, investing in careers, or even planning children's futures must remain on hold. Living in limbo becomes the new normal, and with each passing year the weight of uncertainty only grows heavier. A significant cause of these intensified backlogs is the combination of rising demand and shrinking administrative resources. Immigration offices are overwhelmed, while quotas remain unchanged. New rules impose additional reviews and documentation requirements, which slow the process further. Applicants often find themselves sending repeated submissions, attending multiple interviews, and paying higher legal fees without receiving timely progress. For many, work authorizations tied to green card applications may expire during the wait, leaving families vulnerable to sudden job loss. Critics argue that this system creates a cycle of dependency, where families rely on constant renewals to survive, rather than enjoying the permanence promised by a green card. The broader effects of these delays touch both personal lives and the nation's economy. Families unable to secure permanent residency may hesitate to establish roots, leading to reduced participation in local communities and reluctance to make long-term financial commitments. Businesses lose valuable workers when applicants cannot stay employed through the waiting years, while children raised in uncertain status experience heightened anxiety about their future. Even universities and healthcare systems feel the strain when talented individuals are forced to leave due to unresolved cases. The intensifying green card backlog is not just an administrative problem, it is a human crisis. By 2025, families will continue to live in a fragile balance, uncertain whether their dream of permanent residence will ever materialize, as the promise of security remains out of reach. Number 5. Family reunification restrictions. The fifth rule reshaping immigration in 2025 focuses on stricter family reunification restrictions, an issue striking at the heart of household stability. Traditionally, family-based visas allowed spouses, children, and parents to join loved ones in the United States. Now, new policies are introducing longer waiting times, reduced quotas, and stricter eligibility checks. For families already separated by borders, this could mean years of painful distance, with little certainty of when reunification will be possible. Parents may miss milestones in their children's lives, while couples may endure prolonged separations that strain relationships. What was once a pathway built on compassion is now becoming a maze of bureaucratic hurdles. Another major element of this rule involves tighter definitions of who qualifies as immediate family. Previously, the term extended to spouses, unmarried children under 21, and in some cases parents. Now, discussions of narrowing these categories could exclude certain relatives who were once eligible. Critics argue that this measure undermines the principle of family unity, which has long been a cornerstone of immigration policy. At the same time, the processing system itself is under more pressure, with limited staffing to handle increasing applications. Families are warned that even approved petitions may face multi-year backlogs, leaving relatives stuck abroad without clear timeline. The uncertainty not only damages emotional bonds but also affects mental health, as children and spouses live in limbo, waiting for government approvals. The ripple effects extend far beyond individual households. Communities thrive when families are intact, and restrictions weaken that foundation. Children who grow up separated from a parent often struggle academically and emotionally, while adults navigating separation may experience declining productivity and well-being. Businesses relying on a stable workforce may also face difficulties if employees are distracted or distressed by long-term family division. The essence of this rule is not just about visas, it's about tearing or preserving the fabric of everyday life. By 2025, many families who once dreamed of reuniting under one roof in the U.S. may instead find themselves facing endless delays, uncertain futures, and the painful reality that togetherness is no longer guaranteed. Number 4. Student visa limitations. The fourth rule shaping immigration in 2025 introduces tougher student visa limitations, directly affecting both young learners and their families. Previously, student visas provided a reliable pathway for international students to pursue degrees while allowing limited family support through dependence. Now, restrictions are tightening in ways that could alter the educational dreams of thousands. Extensions for study programs will be harder to obtain, meaning students who need additional semesters may face denial or forced departure. Families who accompany students on dependent visas may also find fewer opportunities to stay, disrupting children's schooling and breaking apart household stability. The once predictable path of entering on a student visa and transitioning into a long-term future is quickly becoming far less certain. One of the most pressing elements of this rule is the cap on working hours and employment options tied to student visas. While students traditionally held part-time jobs to cover tuition or living costs, new regulations may restrict even these limited opportunities. For families, this translates into heavier financial burdens and rising debt. Critics argue that the system creates inequality, favoring only the wealthiest students who can afford the rising costs of education without assistance. Meanwhile, institutions that rely on international tuition may see fewer applicants, threatening not only student opportunities but also the economic lifeline many universities depend on. Legal analysts suggest that by narrowing pathways from student visas to work permits, the U.S. could lose valuable talent to countries with more flexible policies. The broader consequences of these limitations will ripple across society. Families who once viewed education as a stepping stone to a stable future may now perceive it as a gamble with uncertain outcome. Communities enriched by the presence of international students may feel the cultural and economic void if numbers decline sharply. Children whose parents study in the U.S. may face sudden relocations, disrupting friendships and development. For many, the dream of an American education will shift from being a beacon of opportunity to a potential source of instability. By 2025, these limitations on student visas threaten to turn classrooms of hope into corridors of uncertainty, leaving families questioning whether the sacrifices are truly worth it. Number 3. Work authorization delays. The third rule creating immense concern in 2025 revolves around work authorization delays. For immigrant families, the ability to legally work is not only about earning money, it represents security, dignity, and independence. Unfortunately, under the new system, processing times for work permits are expected to stretch much longer, with many applicants waiting months or even years for approvals. During this uncertain gap, families face devastating consequences. Parents who lose their authorization cannot legally remain employed, meaning entire households may suddenly lose their primary source of income. This can lead to evictions, disrupted schooling for children, and increased reliance on informal or unstable jobs. What makes this rule particularly harsh is that delays are not simply administrative. They represent systemic changes that prioritize stricter verification and oversight. Officials are conducting deeper background checks, digital cross-referencing of records, and expanded interviews before granting approval. While intended to ensure compliance, these measures overwhelm already strained immigration offices, creating backlogs that hurt families most in need of stability. Experts note that the number of applications continues to rise while staffing and resources remain limited. As a result, thousands of families live in a precarious position, knowing that at any moment their livelihoods could disappear simply because a document has not yet been stamped or processed. The wider impact of work authorization delays extends far beyond individual households. Communities may experience shortages in critical sectors where immigrant labor is essential, from caregiving to technology. Businesses are left uncertain about whether valued employees will still be legally able to work in coming months, leading to stalled projects and higher turnover. For families themselves, the psychological toll is immense. The inability to plan ahead, whether buying a home, pursuing education, or even scheduling medical care, creates an ongoing sense of instability. Children, too, feel the weight, watching parents navigate stress and uncertainty daily. By 2025, these prolonged delays transform the simple act of waiting into a crushing obstacle, proving that the right to work legally can no longer be assumed as routine, but instead as a fragile privilege constantly at risk. Number 2. Income thresholds for sponsorship. The second major rule reshaping immigration in 2025 centers on income thresholds for family sponsorship. Under new guidelines, U.S. citizens and permanent residents who wish to sponsor spouses, children, or other relatives must demonstrate significantly higher earnings than before. In practice, this means that many middle-class and working-class families may find themselves suddenly ineligible to reunite or remain together. A parent earning a modest salary that once met requirements could now fall short, creating painful choices between staying apart from loved ones or facing financial hardship while trying to meet the new threshold. For families who already balance tight budgets, this requirement becomes more than a number. It transforms into a barrier to family unity. The logic behind the increase, according to policymakers, is to ensure that immigrants entering or staying in the United States do not become dependent on public support. However, critics argue that the threshold is set unrealistically high, disproportionately affecting those who contribute in essential industries like healthcare, agriculture, and construction. These workers often earn steady but modest wages, and raising the bar excludes them from participating in family sponsorship, despite their proven contributions to the economy. Legal experts warn that the rule could lead to a surge of families applying for waivers, but approval rates for such exemptions are historically low. As a result, many households may remain divided, with children growing up separated from one parent or relatives unable to join them in the U.S. Beyond the immediate family, the ripple effects of this rule will be deeply felt. Communities that rely on immigrant populations for cultural and economic vitality may see reduced stability, as families hesitate to invest in housing or long-term plans without certainty. Schools could experience disruptions if children are forced to leave due to sponsorship denials, while businesses may face higher turnover as workers juggle immigration uncertainty. Ultimately, the rising income bar does not only test financial capability, it tests resilience, forcing families to choose between love, livelihood, and legality. By 2025, many will see sponsorship not as a pathway but as a gate locked by numbers beyond their reach. Number 1. Stricter visa renewal requirements. The first major rule families must be aware of in 2025 involves visa renewal requirements becoming significantly tighter. In the past, renewals often allowed for longer time frames, giving families a sense of stability. Under the proposed changes, individuals may face shorter renewal periods, sometimes requiring updated applications every year rather than several years apart. This means families could find themselves constantly dealing with paperwork, legal fees, and interviews, which can create both financial and emotional stress. For parents raising children or maintaining steady employment, the lack of predictability becomes an enormous challenge. A missed document or a delayed submission could result in the loss of legal status, placing entire households at risk of removal from the United States. Another critical element of this shift is the rise in scrutiny during renewal. Officials will be reviewing applications more closely, checking income stability, background records, and even minor discrepancies across forms. What once might have been overlooked as a clerical mistake could now be grounds for a denial. This creates a heightened environment of uncertainty, where families may feel as though their lives are hanging in the balance each time they submit paperwork. Lawyers already predict that the system will generate processing backlogs, which could delay approvals and leave applicants waiting months without clarity. During this time, work authorization could expire, making it impossible for parents to continue supporting their families legally. The impact of this rule is not limited to individuals. It stretches into the community and economy. Employers may lose valuable workers who suddenly fall out of legal status, while children may face interruptions in schooling if their parents cannot maintain valid residence. The constant cycle of renewals will discourage long-term planning, preventing families from investing in homes, careers, and education in the United States. The overall effect is a sense of instability, where thousands of families who once believed they were building a future in America may instead feel trapped in a revolving door of uncertainty. This is why the new renewal requirements are being viewed as one of the most pressing challenges families will face in the evolving immigration landscape of The landscape of U.S. immigration in 2025 is set to become one of the most challenging periods for families in recent history. With green card backlogs, harsher deportation rules, skyrocketing visa fees, and expanded public benefits tests, millions of people face uncertainty, stress, and the risk of losing everything they've built. Each rule discussed in this video isn't just a bureaucratic change. It has real-life consequences that touch homes, careers, communities, and children's futures. Families may find themselves trapped in endless waiting periods, fearing even minor mistakes could lead to separation or forced departure. Communities across the country could lose stability, talent, and economic contributions, while children grow up under constant anxiety about their parents' legal status. Understanding these new regulations is critical. Being informed allows families to plan ahead, seek professional advice, and navigate complex requirements with awareness and caution. Knowledge becomes a shield against the unforeseen, enabling people to make decisions that protect their loved ones and secure their future. Ignoring these changes or underestimating their impact could lead to devastating consequences that might have been preventable with preparation. The immigration system, once predictable, is now evolving into a high-stakes environment where legal awareness, careful planning, and timely action are not optional. They are essential. Families must be vigilant, proactive, and fully aware of how each rule could affect their daily lives and long-term stability. By 2025, survival within this system will demand both knowledge and resilience, turning ordinary citizens into informed strategists navigating an increasingly complex immigration landscape. We want to hear from you. Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below because your voice matters. Don't forget to check out our previous video for more vital updates. And if you appreciate the hard work we put into these insights, support us by subscribing. It's just one click. Together we stay informed and prepared.